Hello to all my fellow landlocked surfers and surf skaters out there. This is Mark the Landlocked Surfer coming to you today with another SurfSkate review, and this is one that I've been looking forward to for some time. Today I'm trying out the Wooddetail Lobos 33-inch SurfSkate. This is one that is marketed as a SurfSkate that's designed for shredding a bowl, for riding in a skate park, and for doing tricks in the street, which is right up my alley in the way it's been marketed. So I'm trying this out as a result of Steve Palmer from SurfSkate Love, who's been kind enough to lend me this board to try out for this review. A few details about the board itself. It's about 33 inches in length, just over 10 inches in width, and has a wheelbase of 16.5 inches. But beyond the shape itself, one of the interesting things is the placement of the holes on this board. It's 33 inches with a 16.5 inch wheelbase, and that's really pushed up as far forward as it can be. You'll see that the front bolts are almost right at the nose, which leaves a huge overlying tail at the back. So there's a big space at the back. When I was riding this board, I found that took some getting used to. When I was trying to lock on for grinds and that, I found that my trucks weren't in the spot that I expected them, and it took me a little while to start to get used to not having those trucks closer to where my feet are. So they were in front of my front foot, and they were quite a bit in front of my back foot. So I was trying to lock on to the rail and couldn't quite get it. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're learning how to drop in on a surf skate in a quarter pipe or a mini ramp, this board is perfect for it. It locks on with that huge tail really well to the coping, so there's lots to latch onto there if you're trying to learn how to drop in. And likewise, if you want to learn how to ollie on a surf skate, that tail hits the ground nice and soon, so it's not like the carver I was showing in my ollie tutorial where you really had to pump it till it's almost vertical. This one ollies quite well, so there's a few positives to having that super long tail, but a few downsides as well. This board has a rather unique shape. You can see it's got a very short stubby nose that then goes into the widest point of the board right at the front truck bolts, and then it tapers down from there to a slightly narrower tail. There's not a lot of shape to it. It's got very mild concave in my opinion, and it's got a kicktail and a tiny bit of lift to the nose. On the whole, I wasn't a huge fan of this deck. I found it was a bit heavy and cumbersome with it being front loaded in terms of weight distribution. There wasn't enough concave for my liking, and I just found that the trucks were too far forward on it. I would have probably preferred putting the bolt holes both front and back about an inch further back. Give yourself a bit more of a nose and not have that super long tail. Moving on to the trucks and their surf adapter system, you can see that it's designed sort of similar to the Yao system, where it's got that internal spring that's housed inside the mechanism so you don't actually see the spring. And first glance, aesthetically, this is a really neatly designed truck. It looks super tight, compact, it's very minimalist in its design. And it looks like it would be, limited maintenance, nicely tucked away so it's not going to get in the way if you're doing grinds or anything like that. So it looks really nice. The trucks are super shiny and glossy, so I think they're going to grind well. Let's talk about the way these trucks perform for pumping and carving. And initially, I found these really loose, almost too loose. You can see how much they sway from side to side. So for you folks who are trying to carve and pump in a really tight space, this might be ideal for you. But I actually found it hard to generate any kind of speed from pumping. And this is one of the only surf skates where I felt some speed wobble when I was trying to use it in the park. You can see in this video that this board turns so tightly that you can do a full S-carve within about a meter space. That actually isn't very effective for pumping. Now, I happened to get a hold of another board that has a similarly long tail to this one, and that made me realize that it's more about the geometry of the board here. The length between those back trucks and the tip of the tail means that if you keep your foot in a normal stance, almost right near the end of the tail, that's going to cause it to pivot a lot more aggressively. So that led me to experiment to see if I could fix this a little bit. So what I want to test is if we really tighten up the kingpin of that rear truck. That'll help improve things. Once I made that adjustment, it started to feel more like a regular surf skate, what I was used to. So an important lesson to this is every surf skate's going to react a little bit differently, so don't be shy about playing around with the adjustments. So I put this back kingpin way tighter than I would on my Carvers or my Yows or the Smooth Stars. So doing that made it feel a little bit better. However, it still, I would say, is not the best pumping board of the ones that I've tried. The wheels on this board are not like the typical thin-lipped surf skate wheels that you see on a lot of boards. They have these thick, chunky wheels, and they have a stone ground surface, so they're a little bit rougher on the contact patch. And this is supposed to make it easier to slide, but I actually found it really hard to get these wheels sliding. They were super sticky. You had to get your weighting almost perfect in order to do that. So for those who are just pumping around, that might be good, but if you're in the skate park, I did find it a little bit harder to use these to do some of the maneuvers that I like. If you've seen any of the advertisements for Wooddetail boards, they have some incredible riders on their team who do fantastic stuff, like skateboard style tricks, which are right up my alley. So I was pretty excited to try this board out in the park. Unfortunately, I actually didn't find it that effective for doing those kind of things. I'm actually incredibly impressed at what they're able to do on this board. So I found that the board was difficult to maintain speed because it was so wobbly. Like I said, you can almost get speed wobbles when you're trying to get speed coming into a bowl. The wheels made it a little bit difficult to do any kind of slide maneuvers. The one area where it really did shine was grinds. As I mentioned before, the trucks are super smooth, there's no kingpins to get in the way, and it didn't have the same propensity to hang up as the Yow did. Now, the one caveat to that is because of the big chunky wheels that are on this board, there were some times where the wheels caused a hang up, but other than that, this was one of the smoother boards for doing carve grinds or even grinds in the skate park area. I really wanted to love this board. I'm still fascinated by what the pro riders for Wooddetail are able to do. I was looking forward to landing my first tray flip on a surf skate, to landing some frontside flips in the bowl, but this isn't a board that, in my opinion, is going to help you get to that next step. Is it still possible to do? Well, yes, obviously. But if you look at the factors of someone who's trying to advance, the weight of the board, the positioning of the trucks, the lack of concave, and just the design overall leaves a little bit to be desired, and it's not, in my opinion, going to be a board that helps you get to that next level with your more skateboard style tricks. Factoring in the value and considering that the price of this board is roughly on par with the other big players in the game, it's not one that I would pick as my first choice. Now, that said, this company does some amazing stuff. I really love their advertising. It's quite inspiring. It's possible that a different model would have been better suited to my riding style, so I wouldn't count them completely out, but for this model, for me, for my expectations, it missed the mark a little bit. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please let me know if you have any comments, if you have any different thoughts about this board, if you've tried it yourself. And stay tuned, because coming up we've got reviews of Swelltech board as well as a Smooth Star board and some more tutorials. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, so that that content can keep coming out for you. Thanks for watching.